Morning, deputies. It's very, very nice to see you this morning. We're just waiting for some final people to be let in the waiting room. So if we could just be patient just for a minute so that everybody can join us that's waiting. It's very appreciated. I think we're nearly there. And apologies, we're going as fast as we can to let everybody in. Thank you. Right, I've just been able to admit a couple as well. So thank you very much and welcome this morning. It's really good to have this opportunity to see you again and connect. And we've got a very full agenda today, so thank you. Moving on to the meeting itself, could Gillian please explain once again the practical arrangements for the meeting? Over to you, Gillian.
Thanks, Marie, and good morning to everybody. Good to see you all. And a reminder that if you want to check anything about how to do technical matters in your board papers that you've been sent, there is a sheet which summarises all of the how-tos. And I also want to remind everybody that if you would like any training or assistance outside the meeting, just get in touch with myself or Judy or Lauren, and we will be delighted to go through anything that you need to in order to help you participate better in the meeting. So just a reminder of a few points. There are 4 board meeting administrators, and their camera will be turned off for the majority of the meeting, but they are, and thanks to all of them, they're the tech team today. Judy Silkoff, Director of Operations, Lauren Kalis, Community Engagement Officer, Leo Mindell and Xander Mindell, who are the ones who live stream our meetings. So they're here to oversee the smooth running of the meeting, so thanks to all of them. For deputies, a reminder that by default, microphones are turned off for the duration of the meeting. However, if you want to ask a question during the meeting, you can indicate this by using the raised hand function, and that is the way you have to do it. Otherwise, we can't see or call people fairly. If you want to raise a point of order during the board meeting, you can do that by using the no function. And both functions, the raised hand and the no functions, can be found in the participant panel. And we put a photograph of this on the briefing document that you've got. When you are called, when and if you are called upon to speak, and that is the discretion of Marie, the administrator will unmute you. If you are wanting to speak, ask a question, make a contribution, you do have to ensure that your video camera is turned on and you are visible before raising your hand. And that's for security purposes, so that only those who are visible will be invited to speak. There is a time limit as always, which and when of course that runs out, your microphone is muted. If you don't want to have your image or your full name to appear on the live stream, please turn off your camera, and by all means you can amend your name once you've entered the meeting. But if you do want to then participate, just restore yourself so we can, as it were, so we can see you and we know who you are. And then you can continue to indicate. There are 2 votes this morning which are planned, and they are regarding 2 new organisations who've applied to join the Board of Deputies. Just before the vote, our administrators will ensure that only those who are eligible to vote can actually do so. So anybody who gets a vote and can use it, that means that you're eligible. So, for example, under 35 observers and any observers of the meeting will be temporarily welcomed into the waiting room. So, finally, if there's anything that you can't clear up by looking at the briefing, or that you can't remember from what I've said, if you need any assistance, please email Lauren, and that's Lauren Keiles, KEILES @bod.org.uk, or you can call her 0207 543 5425. So thank you, Marie, and I hope we have a useful and enjoyable meeting.
Thank you. And can I just reiterate, if there is a point of order, can you not deal with this by a blue hand? Because I will think that a blue hand is somebody that wants to speak at a certain point in time, which is a different thing to be called. And obviously I need to give priority to the agenda of the meeting. A point of order, if there is a point of order, has to be done as described by Gillian. And if you're in any doubt, perhaps you can make contact with the staff. I'm trying to still admit people. Some of the people that I'm trying to admit, I've admitted several times with the same name. So I hope that you can get in. Moving on to the meeting, can I ask whether or not the minutes of the last meeting of the 23rd of August are approved? I haven't had any contact about the contents of the meeting. Thank you. I should take those as approved. I'd like very much now to be able to ask Sally Patterson and Nathan Baroda to join us, because I was so proud that they, for the first time, had a historic youth plenary, and I want to thank Edwin Shuker for all his work with the youth plenary team in making this happen. This was a wonderful occasion. We've learned lots of lessons. We really want to take it forward. And I was so proud to see how many people participated in that. So could I hand over, first of all, to Sally, who's going to speak for a couple of minutes, and then Nathan is going to do the other half of their presentation. Sally, are you here?
I am. I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Marie. So I'm going to speak very briefly about the event that we held on the 30th of August. It was the inaugural youth assembly that the Board of Deputies has ever held, the first of its kind. And we had three key aims for the youth plenary. We had to engage young people in the Board of Deputies and its structures, understand the experience of young deputies and young British Jews, and also to give young people an opportunity to speak directly with the HOs and vice versa. So we really wanted to put young people at the very heart of decision making and make a creative, meaningful and long-lasting change, both within the board, but also within the Jewish community more widely. So we reached out through young deputies, through regional councils, representative councils, and through youth movements, as well as our synagogues and all of our deputies here. We asked everyone to share this opportunity with young people to ensure that we did manage to attract people from across the Jewish community as a whole. And Nathan in a moment is going to talk a bit more about the day itself. But what I think is important to note is that we engaged a group of politically, religiously and geographically diverse young people. And our event was led for youth and by the youth. So myself and Nathan chaired the event, and we had a fantastic committee who were UJS Deputy James Harris, Esther Offenberg and Natalie Della, and NOAM Deputy Toby Coonan. And of course, we have to say a huge thank you to Marie and to Edwin in particular, who really helped to guide and lead this inaugural event, and also to Jake Berger, who was absolutely phenomenal at doing all of the admin and making this event actually happen. We had just under 100 people attend, which I think is quite an achievement for our first event. So I'm going to hand over to Nathan now to tell you a bit more about the layout of the day itself.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sally. I thought we put together a really good programme, a really diverse range of speakers and activities, beginning with our keynote speaker, Stephen Bush, who I thought spoke excellently, as he always does, who's obviously the chair of the board's commission on racial inclusivity. We had a series of breakout rooms, so 2 sets of 3 breakout rooms on refugees, on the environment, anti-racism, cross-communalism, Israel, and European Jewry. Obviously, because of time constraints, I could only attend 2 of them, but they were absolutely excellent. And from all the feedback I've heard, they were a really, really good set of sessions. We then had a Q&A session with the honorary officers, really diverse range of questions asked on the new ambassador from Israel, on anti-Semitism on campuses, on inclusivity in the community. And we really got to grips with a range of questions that could hold the HOs to account, which, as Sally says, was one of the objectives. In terms of going forward, we've got events coming up in the future that we're looking to plan, and really excited as a group, as a diverse group, to work together in the future. But obviously, you know, the triennium is coming to an end, and a new triennium is coming soon. And what we want to do is try and encourage as many young people in your communities as possible to really get involved, to stand to be deputies or under 35 observers, and really get involved in the board in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I want to say well done to Sally, Nathan, and the whole team. You are truly an inspiration. And we want to take this forward because we always know the follow-up is important, and this is really exciting. Thank you for all your hard work. And Edwin, thank you also for your leadership on it. That's really appreciated. And this is really good to see. It's what we want for the future. You're shining examples. Thank you. Deputies, I've been notified by Paul Jacobus that he would like to raise a point of order. I'm happy to hear the point of order. It needs to be fairly succinct because I don't want to lose the whole business of the agenda. So Paul, could I ask you to tell me what your point of order is as succinctly as you can, please?
Thank you very much, Marie. Paul Jacobus, Bush United Synagogue Deputy.
Could you speak up a bit for people? Thank you.
Yes, Paul Jacobus, Bush United Synagogue Deputy. I'd like to raise a point of order under Standing Order 22, which requires all voting to be by a show of hands. This obviously can't happen under the current circumstances, as the standing orders make no allowance for an alternative. Although I understand the board does need to continue its business, last month's online vote resulted in at least 3 deputies claiming they were disenfranchised. In addition, the online voting is unseen and deputies are unable to challenge the vote and to demand a recount or an alternative method of voting. Therefore, non-urgent votes such as the one planned today should be postponed until we're able to follow the standing orders as we're bound to do. Therefore, my point of order is that even if it requires some non-urgent business to be postponed, we delay those votes until we're able to fulfill the standing orders which support our constitution. To do otherwise would knowingly breach our standing orders.
Thank you for being succinct. I want to say that the board, like all charities and other organisations, has got to continue to conduct its business during this global pandemic. And to be frank, we don't know when and if we will be able to meet again in person, and we have to find a way of being able to do the things that we need to do. It's not perfect, but we have to do what we can to be able to carry out our duties and transact the business that we need to do. When we come to overhauling our constitution, which I hope will be in a couple of months, we're on to final drafts of the documents. This will deal with the situation to make sure that we have electronic voting. The only way to challenge this as a point of order is actually by voting, and rather bizarrely, that will mean, Paul, that if you want to challenge this, you'll have to have a 2/3 vote, and you'll have to use electronic voting to do this, because there's no other means, I'm afraid, of voting. So if you want to proceed with the challenge and you want to put the board in a situation where potentially we can't carry on to conduct our business, you need to confirm that to me now, and I will ask for a vote, but you'll have to use the very system that you don't want to use, which is online voting, to do it. So I'm looking at points of order in Standing Order 24 and Standing Order 25, which says that the point of order won't be deemed to be carried unless there's a majority of not less than 2/3. So I'm happy to take that vote if you would like to proceed, Paul. So can you confirm?
Yes, please, can I raise it understanding order 25, which requires somebody to second me and then a immediate vote. I do understand the strangeness of the Catch-22 situation, and I would suggest that the chair of the Standing Orders and Constitution Committee considers how we should proceed at this point.
Well, thank you very much, Paul, but obviously I'm running the meeting as I'm entitled to do, not the chair of the Constitution Committee. So I'll be dealing, thank you, with the running of the meeting, and it's very transparent because we're being recorded and everybody can hear. We don't have any secrets about proceeding to a vote. I'm going to ask on screen. I hope this works and you don't have to give me a few minutes. Can we see a voting option come up on screen? Okay, so it's come up on my screen. Electronic voting. Okay, so the point is, during the global pandemic, where no face-to-face meetings take place, electronic voting may be used at board meetings. Yes or no? So can you please all vote? I'm just going to take a picture of what I can see on my screen. So I'm going to end the poll once there's no more activity, which I think is the case. Okay, the poll is closed. Overwhelmingly, 88% say electronic voting may be used at board meetings and 13% no. We're not ready for another vote yet. If you can take it down, Judy. We're not at the point of don't start voting yet, please, for Sadie Farm. I've just removed that. Thank you. So thank you very much, Paul. It's good to know that we've had a show of hands on voting, because that's very helpful. I'd like to thank you for raising that point of order. I think that's a very fair point. You've done it very well and very succinctly, so I'm glad that's overwhelmingly resolved, and we can carry on with the rest of the meeting. So thank you very much. We now have two new organisations that have applied to join the Board of Deputies. Both of them have been recommended by the Constitution Committee. We also have them with us today so that we can hear directly from them about themselves before we can have the opportunity to vote. So I'm pleased to say that for Sadeh Farm, and of course Sadeh means field in Hebrew, we are delighted to have with us today Talia Chain, who is the founder, and for the application for Mogan David Adom, we have Daniel Berger, CEO, and also Brian Palms, the Vice Chair, who will be observing. So can I hand over to Talia, who will tell us about Sadeh Farm, and I'm sure she'll be delighted to take a couple of questions. Are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Talia.
Thanks for having me. Sadeh Farm was just a little vegetable growing area in 2017 located at Skeet Hill House, which many of you probably know. It's a Jewish retreat centre that's been in the community since the 40s. I asked them in 2017 if I could start a little vegetable growing area and do Jewish agricultural and environmental education for the children and adults that come to the retreat centre. Since then, Sadeh, my charity Sadeh, has taken over the retreat centre itself. We're now actually calling it Sadeh. And yeah, we run a lot of events and activities for all ages, for people from across the Jewish spectrum. We do some interfaith work, and it's very much focused on Jewish agriculture and the environment. We do a lot of food growing, but we do a lot of different aspects of kind of regenerative practices. So that's managing hedgerows, orchard work, and tying that into Jewish traditions. wherever it comes up, which is often because Judaism is an agricultural religion. Sadeh also does things not located at Sadeh. So currently a lot of our stuff is obviously on Zoom, but yeah, we speak in schools or run events in London, are quite politically engaged in anything to do with the environment. So engaging currently with the CEE bill, we're engaged with the agricultural bill. Yeah, it's engaged with all the other Jewish environmental activities that are going on. So very close links with Eco Synagogue, close links with Shema, which is a new organization, the Jewish Vegetarian Society, and Extinction Rebellion Jews, kind of partially personally, partially through Sadeh. So yeah, any questions? Marie, I think you're muted.
I am. Thank you for that, Talia. You are quite right. Thank you. We do have a few questions, and I'm sure that you'll be more than capable of answering them. Mary Rainier Lee, would you like to ask your question? We don't have a clock on, but I don't want anybody to go more than 2.5 minutes. Thank you. Mary.
And I've got 3 very short questions. How many members do you have, or supporters, if you don't actually have membership? What do you think you'll be bringing to the board? And do you endorse Extinction Rebellion and their activities?
Great question. It's a difficult one. I've had a lot of discussions with kind of the Board of Deputies before about our membership, because we don't have, it's not like a synagogue, there's not like a pay-in membership, but we do have a community of at least 30 people who can vote off and on for different activities within Sadeh. Could be different Board of Deputies members or whatever the likes. The second question was, what can I bring to the Board of Deputies? Well, we're I would say we're a small charity, but we're a big Jewish environmental charity. As the world has a lot more environmental kind of charities and discussions, and it being at the forefront of the political discussions, I do think it is important that the Board of Deputies includes something Jewish environmental. And yeah, I'm happy to represent. I guess I was one of the first. So there's one of the first Jewish environmental charities, and we do talk to all the others. And the third question, do we endorse Extinction Rebellion? I don't really know how to answer that, because I don't know what my Board of Trustees would say to that. I personally think that any non-violent activist group, Sadeh thinks that any non-violent activist group that is promoting planetary health, community, humanity, should be supported. Does that help?
Thank you. Can I just ask you, I think you've got some key philanthropists on your website that support Sadeh Farmer. Did I see David Dangor as one of your supporters?
Yeah, he's a big supporter of us, like from day one. He's just, Sadeh would not be anywhere without David Dangor, who just saw my vision immediately. He's a visionary, just with a little drawing that I brought to him based on, there's about 50 Jewish farms in America. So this is based on a kind of tried and tested, already huge and burgeoning, like 10 more Jewish farms every year over there, way of connecting to Judaism. And they've done a lot of reports about how people who've left Judaism have actually come back to Judaism through Jewish farming, how it's a new access into Judaism for people who don't necessarily want to sit in synagogue, or for those people who don't get married and have kids, or sorry, I'll stop right.
Right, I'm just going to move on, because otherwise we'll run out of people.
Please
Karen, thank you so much for your answers. Karen Newman.
Thank you. Karen Newman from the Liberal Jewish Synagogue. I just wanted to say that I think when historically membership of the board was considered, it was generally assumed that most people manifested being Jewish through joining a synagogue. I just want to point out that now I think that really isn't the case. So my own view is that this is a very important vote for the board, because I think if we're serious about recognizing the diversity of British Jewry, we have to recognize that organizations like Sadi Farm are a very legitimate way of manifesting your Jewish identity in Britain today. And I think this vote's very important, and I really, really seriously hope that the board will accept Sadi Farm into membership, because I think organizations like Sadi Farm can reach people and encourage them to manifest being Jewish in Britain today in a way that synagogues simply can't. So I think it's tremendous that you've applied, and I wish this application the very best of luck, Talia.
Thank you. I take it you don't have a question you were supporting. So could I move please to Gillian Moonman, please? Gillian.
Good morning, thank you. Gillian Moonman, Southport Hebrew Congregation. My first question was going to be about Extinction Rebellion, and Mary has already posed that question. I'm not sure that the answer was completely satisfactory. You talk about the principles of Jewish agriculture, and I would just be interested to know whether you're going to apply the laws of Shemitah, or whether you do apply the laws of Shemitah to your farming principles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gillian. One of my favourite questions, Shemitah. We learn lots of the different rules, Jewish agricultural rules, Ola, Peah, Shechicha. Many of them only apply in the land of Israel, but I think having a Jewish farm means integrating those laws however you can. So we are currently gearing up for the next Shemitah season cycle to discuss how we are going to do Shemitah. Is it going to be that we leave a bunch of land fallow? Is it going to be that we always have, before this, I was doing this thing where we just always had a Shemitah bed. So we always had a fallow bed. But now I'm kind of, Sadeh's coming together in a community discussion to how best we can think of to discuss and include and engage with the laws of Shemitah on our land. And also for all the people that are coming, we talk about it to them and provide source materials and discuss why it's really important agriculturally and Jewishly to engage with.
Thank you very much. Andrew Gilbert. You're on mute. Whilst Andrew's unmuting, I've been notified of another point of order, but we'll wait until after this. Andrew, you're on mute.
Mute myself.
Thank you.
I've managed to unmute myself. Sorry, it's hard work. Andrew Gilbert, Reform Judaism. We're being asked in the work we do in London Jewish Forum to respond to the recovery in London, and the sorts of things we're being asked to respond to are things like a Green New Deal, a New Deal for young people, a strong civil society. And I'm absolutely convinced Sadeh Farm is the sort of organisation that will really help us respond to the different concerns that we have in our community. The Board of Deputies is often terribly narrow in the type of discussions we have and the people we have at the board. And us older people and us old white men that sit and women that sit around the board table, we've got to give space at the board. We have to allow other voices in. I'd love you, Talia, to talk about how you would respond to the plans for a Green New Deal from the Mayor of London.
Thanks, Andrew. Yes, I mean, yeah, we need to scrutinise it, discuss it, and push for it, is what I would say, at all agricultural plans. And the Jewish community needs to be a united and strong voice behind that, or it just won't get done. And this is why I'm really passionate that Sadeh is part of, I've always seen it as part of the Jewish community, because obviously together we're so much stronger, and we're a people of the land. We understand what that means. What we can do, we can go back to our roots and understand what that means. And yeah, pushing for those kinds of things, having those kinds of discussions with the Mayor of London is really important. We have we talk to our MP, local MP all the time, local MPs around our area all the time. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And just to let you know, everyone, we are running behind time, but it's important to have the questions. Shelley Salter, and then please Ruth Hart. Shelley Salter.
Hello, can you hear me? Shelley Salter from the Liberal Synagogue in St John's Wood. I think the last two speakers have spoken about supporting an environmental charity to give diversity to the Board of Deputies. I have been down to Skeet. I went there about 2 summers ago. Talia wasn't there, she'd gone off for the weekend, but she'd taken a strip of the field and she was growing vegetables, and she was inviting mainly, I think, children's groups to come down and join in the activities. So, you know, it's important that we support diversity in the Jewish community, and she's very aware of the Jewish way of working in environmental charity. And I'd also like to say she's got some high profile supporters, and if they wouldn't be supporting her if they thought that she wasn't running it in a professional manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Hart. Can you come off? Thank you.
Good morning. Talia, it sounds very utopian, and you know, I love the idea of young Jewish children getting away from their screens and planting their own food. But I mean, I understand that your board of directors, can you not tell us how they feel about association with other extinction-related groups? So how do you feel about any association with groups which may be inimical either to the Jewish religion, to the Jewish people, or to the State of Israel?
I'm sorry, Ruth, I don't completely understand your question. How we relate to like the State of Israel. Sorry.
Yes, well, okay. Well, when Mary asked about Extinction Rebellion, you seemed a little unsure as to what the management of Sadeh Farm thinks. What do you yourself think?
Oh, okay, totally separate to talking about charities that have something to do with the State of Israel, which we don't have any. I mean, obviously it's a discussion, that's a land issue, so we do discuss it, but Sadeh Charity is very focused on Jewish environmental activity in the UK only. For now, I mean, who know, you know, we're small, so we've got to start small. My trustees, what do they, if is the question, what do my trustees think? I mean, they're amazingly, we have such a great board, like my trustees are really involved in everything we do, but they do all have really differing opinions on Extinction Rebellion, as I'm sure they have different opinions on everything, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So that would definitely be the case with Extinction Rebellion. Me personally, yeah, I'm an activist, I'm a climate activist. I care, number one, first and foremost, that there's no planet B and that we need to take care of planet A, and I will do what it takes personally to do that. That's separate though to Sadeh, which works politically with our MPs. Yeah, I'm not sure like how relevant extremely personal political preferences are within the Board of Deputies, or the personal preferences of my trustees, but as Thank you.
Right, we're going to have to move on very shortly. Ben Crown. And I'm really sorry, I cannot take all of the questions. We're going to have to move on to the vote soon. I really would like to, but we haven't even gone on to the second one, and we're running behind. Ben Crown.
Oh, hi, Talia. Thanks very much for your time this morning. It's great to see this application come to plenary. I know it's taken some time. I appreciate your patience. I just want to ask, you say obviously you're involved now in running Skeet Complex, the house and the ground as a whole. Is it still sort of a base and a sort of a resource shared with other organisations in the community? You have trips and residential weekends and so forth. And if so, could you speak to that a little bit so we see more fully how you fit into the infrastructure of the community?
Absolutely, that's so important to what we do. We did one of the first things I did was get photography, a permanent photography exhibition to go up the stairs from the Bradians, because I have a very good relationship with the Bradians, who used to run Skeet House for many years. We did a big tea party for them last year. They financially help us. Like, they're really supportive and amazing, and I feel it's very important to support that history and that legacy of Skeet Hill House. We did have a lot of residentials, definitely increasing that. I guess when I took it over, it was at a very low time for Skeet Hill House. I suppose the last 10 years before I took it over had been very difficult, I think, for the management, trying to get a lot of groups. People do love it, but the Jewish community is small, and it wasn't really sustaining itself with the numbers, I guess, by the time I took it over. So just trying to increase that, have more, I'd say, like, we want more schools, more youth groups, more adult groups, more groups to come down. I think residential trips will be difficult for the foreseeable future. So thinking about how to kind of, okay, maybe you don't have to stay, but you can still come for the day and run around and do kind of Jewish activities and have a bit of leisure, have a bit of recreation, time away from our screens. Definitely really, really important to continue to engage with all the Jewish schools.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to ask two more speakers, and can they really be quick? And I'm so sorry, because I've got a whole queue of people here, and I'm really sorry. Right, Adrian Cohen and Gid Smith, and then I'm really sorry, we're going to have to proceed to the vote. I think we've had a wide variety of questions. Please be very quick with your questions.
Adrian Cohen, Highgate United. Thank you very much, Talia, for a very interesting explanation. Just say, I think the stuff about Extinction Rebellion is really irrelevant. I mean, obviously, from what I understand, is people who are involved with Sadeh Farm have got different perspectives, as I'm sure other people have. I mean, from what I've heard, I'm very supportive of Sadeh Farm, whereas I'm very sceptical about Extinction Rebellion, and I think the science they have is very questionable, but that's a different issue. And I think at the risk of using a cheeky metaphor, I think we should be adding to the biodiversity of the board by bringing in these different perspectives if we want to be a truly representative organisation. And also, perhaps this is the first step in the board becoming food self-sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I've had contact, fair enough, from someone who's only spoken once before. So I'm going to have Gid Smith and Alex Arb, and then we have to move on with the vote. Gid, please be as quick as possible.
I was going to make the same point that Adrian made. I can pass.
Oh, well, that's very quick. Right, thank you. Alex.
Hi. I basically, wearing both my Croydon hat and my CST hat, etc., etc. Firstly, CST has supported SEDA. Okay, so we're not going to support an organisation that we think is some crazy, extreme organisation. As far as Extinction Rebellion goes, I do follow SEDA, and I've never seen any mention of it come up. It's not really part of the whole thing for SEDA, so I don't really understand how that's become. I'm sure within my synagogue or within the CST we might have people that support it and others that don't. It's not really relevant to this thing. What is relevant to this thing is the environment and including all groups. A lot of kids from South London, because obviously SEDA's on the M20 near the M25, but on the southern side of the river. A lot of kids from South London have been there. We took a load of Bromley kids there. We've taken other kids there, and they all feel like members. So if we need official membership, then there's hundreds of kids for a start. I think it's really important that the Board of Deputies support them joining. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Now is the moment. Could the vote please come up on the screen? I'm just going to give Judy Stilkoff a moment because the under 35 observers can't vote. So I'm going to apologise to them because they're going to be removed to the waiting room. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. So Judy, when you can put the vote up, could you put the vote up? Okay, here we go. Deputies. I'll read it. I'm in favour of Suddy Farm joining the Board of Deputies. Very simple vote, yes or no. Could you please vote? I just need to ask Judy if we've got the vote outcome, because I don't have it yet. I'm waiting because I've voted myself. Okay. I'm pleased to tell you, well done, Suddy Farm. 69% have voted for your membership and 31% no. So we're very much looking forward to welcoming you and working with lots of young people and children. Well done. I think the questions were very, very extensive, and I think they've raised very, very important issues. Could we now go on, please, to Magen David Adom, UK? Can we welcome Daniel Berger? And we also have Brian Calms, the Vice Chair, who's going to be, I understand, observing, but very welcome to speak. So Daniel, are you there?
I am. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for having Brian and me this morning. It's lovely to virtually meet so many of you, and I'm delighted to see so many people on the Zoom call. As I say, thank you very much for giving us the platform and the time. I'm going to come at this from the basis that I assume, and please correct me later, that you all know that Magen David Adom is Israel's national medical emergency service and know about the ambulances. So if we take that as the starting base, I just wanted to explain a little more about MDA's work and why we're considering asking for membership of the board. So as I say, MDA really splits into three functions in Israel. It is the ambulance service, the National Medical Emergency Service of Israel. And at the moment, that's particularly poignant as it's handled all pre-hospitalization and COVID testing. And in the first 6 months of this year, it's now carried out over 1.3 million COVID tests across the country, including over 70 drive-through testing facilities. It has a team of 24,000 volunteers and only 2,000 staff. So over 90% of its workforce does this on top of their day jobs or as youth volunteers for free. The blood services is also run by MDA. Over 98% of Israel's blood supply and 100% of the IDF's blood is supplied by MDA. And this is including the new blood center we're building in Ramla to take the blood services and put them underground for all the reasons we know of where Israel is geographically. And I'm not going to go into all of this. We need to have a protected, secure unit for the blood. And also as Israel's population grows, they need a bigger facility. This project that we're building with our American friends is at a cost of $120 million. I'm delighted to say that even during COVID and the slowdown, it will be opening in a year's time from now. The other part, which I think is also fascinating, and one of the reasons I wanted to pitch and talk to you today, is Magen David Adom since 2005 has been a member of the International Red Cross. It is Israel's National Red Cross Society. It was incorporated and brought in by the chairman of the Red Cross at the time, who is also the president of the Jordanian Red Crescent. And it was the president, Dr. Al-Khadib, that stood up to the Arab League and insisted that both MDA and the Palestinian Red Crescent join the movement simultaneously. And that was a big noise and it was a big fuss made back in 2005. I think it's fascinating to be able to see MDA's work on an international stage and also on a domestic stage, for example, bringing in Syrian refugees and treating them in Sfat and helping them and ultimately helping save their lives with the rest of the Israeli medical services. It's something that is amazing. You possibly saw recently, we launched an appeal for medicines for Lebanon. As we know, the Israeli government offered aid and support and it was rejected, but we were asked if we would try and help secure some medicines and some funding and work with our partners in the UK and help ship medicines into Lebanon. And I'm delighted that a lot of our support base got behind this project. And we, alongside World Jewish Relief, worked on 2 different schemes, but they were complementary of each other and were able to help there. The breadth of work MDA does in Israel is enormous, but I think one of the questions we may be asked is what can we bring to the board? Well, at a time you've already talked about today, which is the world is changing, people aren't going to shul or cannot get to shul. It's not necessarily all about the Jewish identity in the synagogue. We represent an organization which is totally diverse. It is apolitical, it transcends politics, and it has worked around the world in countries where there is need, no matter what the diplomatic relations at times. Closer to home and supported by the Wall Foundation, we've been able to put defibrillators in all Jewish schools that didn't have. And I know we've worked with some of the synagogues, possibly even on this group today, to provide them with defibrillators at cost, sometimes below cost, and help with training through our partnership with the British Red Cross in the UK. We've also worked with CST, and we are continuing to work with CST on some of their first aid training. And I know there were plans to bring MDA over before lockdown, who were going to help train CST in very specific aspects of medical emergency training. So we have a cross-communal service here in the UK. Other areas where some of your children or grandchildren may have been involved is we take children on tour. Well, I'm sorry, no. Israel Experience takes children on tour, and depending on the group and depending on the year, sometimes they go to an MDA station, and we know many of the UK kids have been trained in first aid in the stations, and they've seen that and they've loved it. For decades now, MDA has also been part of the Gap Year scheme with Israel Experience, where people can go over to Israel and instead of choosing the army or one of the other vocations, they can learn first aid and they can go and spend time on the ambulances. And we have an amazing volunteer alumni program, and we have several advocates who still go out there and champion for us. And so we are all encompassing within the community, although there is obviously this 2,000-mile disconnect to Israel. As times change, we are hearing more and more that people are supporting Israel for different reasons. So we're getting these challenging questions. Why should I support Israel? Israel is a wealthy nation. GDP per capita is greater than the UK. So our answer is very simple. We can help in other ways. We are this flag-flying advocate for Israel. We have been asked numerous times to provide support, to provide help, and it sees an expansion of our donor base. At times where we know support for Israel from the JPR research a few years ago is declining and the community is polarizing, we believe we're able to transcend more of that, both domestically and work with our support base on an international scale. So that is in summary what we do. It's a very brief summary, I appreciate. I hope you received the pre-reads we sent out the other day, just highlighting some more of our recent work and some of our campaigns and breadth of what we're doing. So I know it's very quick and we're not meeting in person, but I'd be delighted to take, as would Brian, any questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does Brian want to say anything, or at least say hello? Thank you so much for that, Daniel. Do you want to say hello, Brian?
Right, thank you. Yeah, I will just endorse what Daniel says, that like many people, it's easy to assume this is buying ambulances for a really wealthy country. And I hope I can re-emphasize what Daniel said, that this is really a fundamental charity which is at the heart of that great Jewish tradition of saving lives. And we do that both within the large Jewish community of the State of Israel, but on a broader humanitarian basis as well.
Thank you both very much. Does anyone have any questions? This is very unusual for the deputies, because if we don't have any, oh, very good. Okay, thank you. Doris Schmetterling.
Hello. Yeah, unmuting takes a little while because I have to wait on you guys to do it. Good morning. My very interesting presentation. My question is, or two questions. How many employees are there in the UK? sorry, three. This is the Spanish Inquisition type question. How many employees in the UK? 1, 2. How big is the UK Executive Board Trustees? And 3. What's the estimated number of volunteers in the UK? Thank you.
Well, good morning. Thank you for those questions. We are a team of 8, including a couple of contractors. We're a very lean, small team. In terms of trustees, we're 12, representing a breadth of skills across our board. Our chairman is a lawyer, don't hold that against him. Brian is a management consultant, and we have an excellent skill set who make up our board of trustees. In terms of volunteers, you're talking about people actually working in the UK in our office?
I think in any capacities. Doris, on mute.
So that's always a harder question to answer, because in the UK, we are an administrative function. We have one dedicated, amazing volunteer who works for us and has worked for a number of years. He is part of the family and definitely a member of the team. But I think the broader point there is MDA UK is 71 years old now. It's almost as old as the State of Israel. And as we're looking towards virtual events later this year, I can tell you that we have 92 committee members across 21 committees from as far south as Gibraltar, right the way up to the Isle of Man and the Highlands of Scotland. So we have an enormous communal base of supporters through committees and fundraising groups.
Can I ask you, is this an organisation where you would welcome the involvement of young people?
Oh, 100%. And in fact, actually, we're doing everything we can to ensure that our donor base and our support base gets younger. We're working with an amazing new group, our new young board, and we're talking about possibly putting the chairman of the young board onto our board of trustees. These are people absolutely passionate, and yeah, we'll do everything we can to make the average donor base age lower.
Thank you. Well, I don't have any more questions. I'd like to thank you for everything that you've both said. Could we proceed to the vote? I'm going to vote as well. Thank you all for your questions, deputies. They're very good questions. I'm sorry, a question's come up, but it's too late for this one because we're proceeding to the vote. So apologies. I've seen who it is and I'll give him priority for the next question. So just waiting for the vote to come on screen. Apologies, I was just waiting for it because I don't have control of the vote, so just be patient. I should just try and find out. Here we go. Thank you very much. So I'll just read the vote. The vote is, I am in favour of Morgan David Adom joining the Board of Deputies. Can you please vote either yes or no? And then press submit. Thank you. Right, I'm just waiting now for the outcome. And yes, we have an outcome. Congratulations, Morgan David Adom. 90% have voted for you to join the Board of Deputies and 10% against. So I'm absolutely delighted, and we'll welcome both of your new deputies to the Board of Deputies, and we're really looking forward to your contributions. And as far as I'm concerned, that's really good news. And thank you for answering all of the questions today. And deputies, also thank you for your questions. It's very, very appreciated. I've been told that Jerry Lewis has a point of order, so he can put the point of order, but I would ask again, as I did with the previous person, for this to be concise, because otherwise we're not going to finish the business of the meeting, because we still have quite a lot on our agenda. Jerry.
Thank you, morning. Just two very quick points. One, President, could you do all of us who are now harder of hearing to boost your own microphone, because you're coming across very softly, and unfortunately for some of us it's difficult to hear. Other participants from the board meeting this morning we can hear very clearly. You, we can't. Could you please do something with your microphone?
I can't actually do anything with the microphone, and everyone else has said they can hear me. So I'm sorry if you can't hear me, but I'm afraid that I can't do anything with the microphone, but that isn't a point of order. But thank you.
Could you not speak closer to the microphone?
I can't do anything about my microphone, and nobody else has got a problem hearing me, I'm afraid. Nobody else does. I need to move on, but thank you.
The other point I had, Madam President, very briefly, I did ask whether the chat facility could be made available for all of us deputies rather than just the top table and staff. I now see it's on, but could we have a decision? I understand the executive said no, but literally we as deputies can't speak to each other. We can't go and do emails in the middle of a Zoom meeting, yet we could use WhatsApp if our phone numbers were provided on the lists.
Thank you. Again, this is not a point of order, and we're not having the availability, unfortunately, to chat because we've got security considerations, and that's already been decided. I'm sure the executive might look at that again, but that's not a point of order, I think, for this meeting, and I need to carry on with the meeting. Thank you. Can we come to the next item on the meeting? Thank you for your points, but we'll come on to the next item. The 2019 accounts. This is very important. This is going to be presented by our treasurer, Stuart McDonald. So Stuart, over to you presenting.
Thank you.
The accounts.
And, bear with me, all of you who are not into this stuff, and those who are into the really fine detail also, bear with me. I'm going to try and steer a middle course, not least because of our time constraints, but yeah, normally I extemporize these things. I'm actually going to refer to notes. Basically, presenting the accounts for 2019, which I'm sure you've all read, is actually a once in a year opportunity to highlight the work of the F&O, plus the extremely capable professional staff with whom we're able to work as smoothly as we are. And for those of you who don't follow what we do closely, our focus is on helping the board to function efficiently and on helping to improve, often in little increments, how it can operate going forward. And we have succeeded, there's no doubt about this, in the last several years in running quite a tight ship. But it goes without saying, these are extremely challenging times, not only for us, but for the community as a whole. And this applies to any voluntary sector organization, whether Jewish or not, that does not enjoy, as it were, a close group of long-term funders. I'll come back to this shortly, but first let's look back. I'm pleased to say that the report and accounts for 2019 that have been sent to you show a surplus overall of just under 200,000 of 190,000 pounds. To repeat what is in the divisional report and the explanatory note for deputies prepared by our finance director, Brian Markison, and the F&O's audit working group, there was a long planned change to the accounting estimate used to accrue for communal contribution receipts from one year to the next. This meant that we would accrue in the past for the community contribution each year on the basis of estimating the likely inflows in the first quarter of the year following. We're now doing it for only the first 2 months. This gives us a clearer picture going forward. And this took £177,000 from last year's income figure. But if you look at it on a like-for-like basis, compared to previous years, including 2018, 2019 would actually have shown a small operating surplus of £8,000. I'm sorry about the figure of 12,000 in my Treasurer's report. And that's compared to what was a budgeted and then reforecast shortfall of £64,000. So a small surplus there. I would encourage you, if you have any detailed questions or questions about the minutiae of the accounts, to write to me or call me or attend an F&O meeting. These are open, if confidential, affairs. As we've established before, this is not a forum for minutiae, and deputies will be aware that over 30 of us deputies, plus the board's senior management team, have sight of our financials from one angle or another. And the accounts have not only been scrutinized by our new auditors, Crowe, who were themselves appointed after a very rigorous and detailed process, but by my fellow trustees who've approved them, by members of the senior management team and the F&O's audit working group, led, this time I'm going to name names because the spotlight's on us, by Sid Braham, and including Jeff Norman, Barry Shine and Ben Crown, alongside our divisional vice chair, Tony Seymour. I must thank them for their help and also extend my congratulations to Brian Markison and our in-house accountant, Stuart Williamson, for successfully completing the process of preparing, reviewing and publishing the accounts under such difficult circumstances post-COVID-19. And this takes me into what I think should be our main focus generally. The accounts relate to the old situation where, after several years of progressively introducing and implementing not always comfortable but always rigorous controls, we had, as I mentioned earlier, a pretty tight ship running. Since COVID-19 arrived, the game has simply changed. We responded in the first instance by reforecasting the original 2020 budget to take account of anticipated shortfalls in income. Savings were also found, in six figures on expenditure that could not happen due to the lockdown or which could be deferred or avoided altogether. Nevertheless, income is clearly under pressure. We're beginning to get data points. And after the Hagim, we're going to be looking perhaps at a reforecast, given that we're getting hard information. We are looking at ways of filling the gap. For example, an alternative to the President's Dinner is being explored. Sheila Gawal is leading this. Grants and individual donors are being pursued by the President, the Chief Executive, and myself in different contexts. But in the end, our main source of income remains the communal contribution. And I can only, as I always do at normal meetings, encourage you as deputies to do your utmost here. Please get it onto your shul bills. It's not on every shul bill. Promote the board within your organization. A lot of you do a fantastic job with that, but there's more that some of you could do. And get the representation fees paid. And take up your full representation entitlement. Everyone does. And please, I can't urge you strongly enough, respond to the community engagement team that is having, that's being run so capably by our operations director, Judy Silkoff. In other words, to Lauren Kyles in London and Sarah Radovan in Manchester. I know they've already been in touch with many of you in your organizations. Also, get in touch if you yourself have ideas for alternative or supplementary ways of generating income. We have a working group, and I should thank Richard Sassoon, Ruth Friedman, Simon Hockhauser, Marilyn Keane for their support at various junctures. Now, another important aspect of our financial situation, well, I can tell you that our investment reserve did perform very well, and that's what took us last year into surplus. And our managers have continued to perform pretty well. The reserve is in good shape, and I must say thanks to Morris Lawson, who leads the working group that looks at our investments, which also includes Sid Braham, Lawrence Julius, Jeff Norman, and Gid Smith. We're going to have one of our periodic formal reviews of our professional investment managers. Those are the old Oxford Endowment Fund at Willis Towers Watson and Stonegate Fleming, in tandem with our external professional advisor, the private office, in early November, and we will report any material changes. But the investment reserve is in fairly good shape. We may need to draw down on it over the next 12 months. I'm hoping that if that happens, it won't be until next year, but if income continues to tail off, and I think the community contributions off, looking like it's going to be off between 15 and 20% on the year, you know, we may need to draw down on it sooner. Again, we'll keep you posted. I should also thank, this is a really important development, our risk management group led by Richard Sassoon and Tony Seymour, who with Judy Silcoff have put together a very thorough and usable risk management framework. And that has really helped the HOs. You know, plus, I should also thank the F&O members who've made significant contributions to the Constitution Committee and the President's Constitutional Working Group, Karen Newman, Robert Stone, and of course, Ben Cran. And I also want to thank Gay Jewell and Leonard Bazar, highly valued, and Adrian Cohen for their respective interventions at different times. Finally, I want to thank all the deputies who've been in touch with such kind words about the latest set of accounts. Though I should emphasize that the accounts are to some extent, they're old news. Normally we would have had the accounts out 2 or 3 months sooner. Under the current circumstances, I'm just glad that we've got them out and filed with the Charities Commission. They're going to Companies House. But you know, our focus really, to my mind, needs to be on how we deal with the situation now and going forward. And again, if anyone has questions about the accounts in terms of detail or minutiae, I would suggest that they contact me offline. I will, though, go into a few points that may save us some time now and going forward. Very quickly, there's simply things, for those of you who did look at the accounts closely, that occurred to me when I looked at them. First of all, page 7 in the income and fundraising timetable, you look at other income, the shortfall in terms of budget was due to some timing differences and also to a truncated fundraising initiative, which led ultimately to us starting to recruit a new fundraiser. This process unfortunately got put on ice by COVID-19. We will revisit this, but there were a series of initiatives that we could not pursue last year as a result of this. You forgive me referring to the accounts themselves. If you go to page 22, I see events and hall hire suddenly going up between one year and the next, and that was partly to do with including the dinner premises for last year's successful President's Dinner as a separate item, and some other external events like Invest in Peace. You see other costs further down going up, and that was in large part to do with various SARS-related activity, very time-consuming, quite costly, and some early work to do with the Constitution Working Group. If you look, I'm almost done at page 25. Some people have already asked me about the number of employees having benefits in excess of 60,000 or more. The loss of one of those between the 2 years is because Greg Lyons, our former Finance and Operations Director, left and was replaced by 2 people, Judy Silcoff and Brian Markison, who don't singly qualify for that categorization. Page 28, note 19, the drop in the debtors figure, the third line, prepayments, is largely due to the adjustment that was made to the accounting estimates for the community contribution and also to some rent prepayment. And on page 30, note 24 relates to the rent in Toriana Mews. Just to say that, because people ask about this, we have received a small coronavirus related rebate, and we do have a break clause in 2022, at the beginning of 2022. We'll have to take a decision about that. And finally, page 30, the note to do with number 25, the reduction in debtors goes down to, that is largely to do with the community contribution accounting estimate being changed, the adjustment, and also to better collections. I know we have very little time. I'm happy to take questions. Many of them, I suspect, I may have to ask you to write to me or suggest that you write to me. That's it. Marie, how long have we got?
We've got a little time for some questions.
Okay. I can't see who's asked questions.
I'll call the people. Jonathan Brody, would you like to ask a question, because you don't? Apologies that my phone rang. It's my daughter. I don't know why she's called.
Yeah, Jonathan Brody, Kingsbury Synagogue. Stuart, I wondered if you were able to advise us how the costs of these meetings compare now that we're doing them on Zoom compared to the cost when we were all getting together in the BMA. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. This is one of the unintended savings. It hasn't necessarily worked out for the worse, because I think many of us are enjoying the new format. Under both formats, there's a not inconsiderable cost in terms of staff time, and that doesn't really go away. But I think taking the premises hire versus at the BMA versus Zoom subscription costs and the very generously discounted cost of having Leo Mindell pull all this together for us, I think we've gone down from somewhere between £3,500 and £4,000 to about £550, £600. So that's one area where we have succeeded in saving money. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Can we please hear from Ben Crown, please? Can you unmute, Ben, with your question?
Ben?
Yeah, sorry, Stuart. This isn't so much a question, something I just want to pull from the accounts and highlight to deputies. In note 13 on page 26 of the accounts, that we know that obviously the HO spend an enormous amount of time on organisational business, in meetings, in administration, in interacting within the community and externally. But I just want to flag that, as well as that, the 5 of you combined have donated more than almost £11,000 to the organisation personally from your own pockets. I just sort of wanted to draw that deputy's attention and thank you very much, and just highlight that when previously you've talked to deputies about the need to go out and raise money for the organisation, you as a collective group really are putting your money where your mouth is. So thank you very much for that.
That's very kind of you, Ben. And at least one of us has never made an expense claim at the board.
I actually don't think, Stuart, I'm sorry, I'm going to say that that's a fair thing for you to raise, because different people do need to.
Well, I stand corrected, Marie, but nevertheless, I think that it's a fair point of Ben to make, that we're making that the trustees really do put a lot of effort into this.
Right, and I want to encourage people to be trustees that don't have high incomes and are fully entitled to claim expenses. Robert Festenstein, and then Andrew Gilbert, and then Eda.
Yeah. Stuart, there's no mention here of expenditure by divisions. Since the divisions are an integral part to the operation of the board, this comes as a bit of a surprise. Why is that left out?
It's simply not the format that we use or is called for by the Charities Commission or asked for by our auditors. That's the simple answer. If you have an interest in looking at individual divisional expenditures, I would encourage you, as I have other people in the past, to come along to an F&O meeting. You'd be very welcome, Robert. I can't hear you, Robert. You're on mute.
Also, it would be really good if all of the deputies could ensure that their synagogues pay the rep fees, especially if they haven't been paid for a few years. I think that's the first duty of any deputy. Just pointing that out. If Robert's on mute, we'll move on.
Marie, I don't have much more to say on that, but who's next? Andrew?
Okay, Andrew, whichever one of them wants to go first. Andrew, you're on mute. Yeah. Everyone's on mute today. Well, I'm sorry, we can't hear Andrew. So Ido, and then Andrew.
Hope you can hear me.
Yeah, please
Just very briefly, I might have missed the point, and apologies if I had. I didn't see any comment about the stuff that was sent off to follow. Are we going to bring everybody back as before? Are you going to have any redundancies, etc.? Thank you.
Can I say that it's not appropriate to talk about individual staff or redundancies? It really isn't.
Not individual, it's a group of
I'm
staff.
sure you're going to appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Brian Humphreys.
Thank you. Thank you. Andrew Gilbert, Reform Judaism. We, in Reform Judaism, most of our synagogues very much pay the community levy, and the community levy is many times what they pay as delegates' fee. And except for our most small synagogues, virtually none of them would have a...
Direct at you, Andrew, or your show, just to be clear for everybody, it wasn't a question directed to you.
No, can I just, I realise that, but the question I've got is that I believe there are significant, in the past, we used to have a naughty list. All the people that were not paying, that was published each year, a lovely list, and we could see all the naughty organisations on the board that were not paying their delegates' fee, not paying their community levy. I understand that that this is either not the done thing anymore or whatever, but please, I'm asking two very simple questions. Minimum, can we have a number of organisations that are on the board, particularly with synagogues, who are paying more as delegates' fees than they pay as the community levy, as a number, ideally a list of organisations, and also those organisations that are not even paying a delegate's fee and somehow have got delegates to the organisation. And so, and ideally publish this and sort this out. And I don't want to, I'm aware of certain situations on this that I will not expose in the meeting, but simply it cannot be acceptable, except for very small synagogues, that there is a situation where they are paying more as delegates' fees than as a community levy, and there are far too many big synagogues where I understand that's the situation. Thankfully, I don't believe any of those are reform. I've got real concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Good points in the round, I agree. We haven't wanted to be too aggressive about naming and shaming, but it's beginning to come to the fore. It's really only a small minority, but nevertheless, it is upsetting. I'll confer with our colleagues about what action to take going forward about this. But very fair points. I thank you for that.
Michael Sampson.
Thank you. Michael Sampson, Nottingham Hebrew Congregation. Does the board send out regularly a written reminder to each congregation that the money is due at the end of each year? Because I think that's an important thing to do, so that people do get aware that they have to be taking into account payments for that year. Thanks.
Michael, that's something that is done and also done within the year, both about communal contribution and rep fees. And our community engagement team comes into contact with different organizations in that regard. Individual deputies really should take the initiative also with that. It is upsetting that a very small minority of deputies don't seem to be prepared to do either of those things, to get things paid or to promote the board. But we have a collections process that in any case is pursued by our finance people. So this happens anyway. And we do understand some organizations run into financial difficulties or, either temporarily or on a more durable basis, but not all do. So there we are.
Thank you. Sally Strauss, followed by Brian Humphreys and Susan Pascoe.
Am I unmuted? I think so.
No, I can hear you, Sally.
I'm not asking about individual members of staff, but I would like to know what the situation is concerning the fact that some members of staff have been furloughed and what is going to happen.
I'm sorry, I'm going to answer this question again. It's really not fair to discuss the staff on live streaming. It really isn't, and I'm sorry. People deserve their dignity, and it's really not appropriate because it's a live situation. Not going to allow that question. Thank you. Susan Pascoe.
Hi. I just wanted to make, in relation to Andrew's point that it's actually not called the communal levy or community levy, because it's on a voluntary basis, so that the charities can claim gift aid and the individuals can pay that part by charity voucher. So I think that needs to be taken into account in the discussion, so that the Board of Deputies doesn't end up with HMRC investigation into what is going on with a community contribution. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there's been help from your direction in the past about this, and thank you, much appreciated. Who's on next?
Brian Humphreys, and then Robert Festenstein, if he can unmute this time. Brian Humphreys.
Yes, I think you mentioned in your presentation about looking into replacing the dinner. I just point out a number of other organisations have found very innovative ways of holding a dinner on Zoom or some other method, and I do hope the board will be able to do that. The other thing is, I have in the past, on a couple of occasions, has suggested that we might look into some form of sponsorship or patron system. I didn't have any response, but I hope that's still something you could look into.
Yes, I'll just say about online events. It's been the experience of many charitable and commercial organisations that a lot of webinar-based fundraising activity doesn't necessarily work, because there is so much content and there's so many prestigious people as speakers or as special guests who are available out there. So it's not as easy as all that to get it right, and that's why the process that Sheila and Gillian are leading has not reached its conclusion yet, but I can assure you that they seem to be proceeding on quite sensible lines. We can't realistically hope to substitute for the loss of the net profit of the President's dinner as a whole, but we hope to recoup something. But yes, thank you for that. And in terms of patronage, yes, that's something that is being looked at, but at the moment, the whole voluntary sector income generation situation is being really thrown up in the air. We're continually having to look at this in terms of where we can take this. Very difficult to get new individual donors at the moment, for example, for any charity. But Brian, thank you for those. What you've been saying in the past has not been forgotten.
Right, the last two questions, please can you make them as brief as possible so we can carry on. Robert Festenstein and Carol Abrahams. Robert.
Thanks, Marie. I did try and ask this before, but I couldn't unmute myself. Stuart, these are not just accounts. This is a report on accounts, and the report is to the deputies. The accounts is a statutory matter, but the report is also a requirement of the HOs to report to the deputies what's going on financially, and to omit the details, even in the broadest of terms, of the expenditure by the divisions, who are supposed to be the policy groups in the board. Makes no sense to me. Why are the deputies not being told about expenditure by the divisions?
Robert, there are, as I mentioned, a good 30 of us who look at our finances from different angles on a regular basis, and there is no lack of transparency about what's going on at divisional level. I invite you to attend an F&O meeting at which this can be explored, or to go offline with this, because if you have particular concerns, it would be good to know what they were specifically, and please do contact me. I'd welcome that. Thank you. Who was the last one?
Carol.
Okay, Carol.
Hi, Stuart.
Carol.
When your staff, your excellent staff, contact schools about anything financial, can I please ask, as I have in the past, that the deputies are copied in, because I don't know what's going on between your financial staff and the school. And I've had to step in the past at a late stage and sort of soothe troubled waters. Could you please make sure that even if only for Catford and Bromley Shul, that I am copied in to any communication between the financial staff and my synagogue.
Okay, Carol, I really will take that up with the relevant staff after this. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Thanks to everyone for their questions.
Thank you. And can I remind everybody, when you speak, could you put your constituencies? I've had a couple of questions about the vote, because it was given in percentages. So I'm happy to give the numbers. So on Sadie Farm, 100 deputies voted. 100 said yes, and 44 said no. So 144 voted. And on Movin David Adom, 133 said yes, and 15 said no. I've also had a point of order raised in writing, which I think I will deal with whilst we're in the meeting. I'll read this out from Robert Festenstein to Richard Del Monte. It says, I believe that the vote that was just taken for Sadie Farm was invalid. 1, there were 10 people waiting to ask questions and they were ignored. 2, I raised a point of order twice and they were ignored on both occasions. 69% is by no means an overwhelming majority, and in my view, the result should be withdrawn. Full details given of this organisation and a new vote scheduled. Can I just say in response to that I took a huge amount of questions. There weren't 10 waiting. There were some, but I took very, very balanced questions. I didn't see a point of order. And as far as I'm concerned, this indicative voting system does show a clear majority. The majority was meant to be 2/3 and it's 69%. So as far as I'm concerned, I've dealt with the point of order, and I do not propose to withdraw the result, because I think that would be most unfair. I'm sure I shall hear from people if they want to continue to assert otherwise, but I would ask deputies to be respectful of democracy. I know that there isn't provision at the moment for online voting in the Constitution, but this was a vote. We had lots and lots of views expressed. We went very much over time, and a huge amount of, I would say, very balanced questions were asked for admission for Sadie Farm. So I hope that we can move on from this. Thank you. Could we move on to the President's statement? And can I say at the beginning that I was very, very sad to hear of the death of Brian Gordon, who was a very valued deputy. And I hope that we've got Flora Frank, who's going to say a tribute.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie. Can you hear me?
Yes, very
okay,
loud.
Thank you. I want to thank Madam President Marie, the honourary officers and the board for allowing me and showing that we're a board who really cares. Because with all the wonderful and exciting ventures that we've just been discussing and voting for, I think this is even more important. And it is with great sadness that I give this tribute to a former deputy, Brian Gordon, Zichron Livracha, who sadly passed away last Thursday at the early age of 64. He was first and foremost a devoted husband, father and grandfather to a large and loving family, a solicitor by profession, a former long-standing member of the Board of Deputies, representing, and now you'll see how long he's been with us, Heirut, which was the forerunner of Likud at a time when they had minimal support. And he is a long-standing Conservative councillor for the borough of Barnet, an ardent supporter and defender of anything Jewish. He's a Bal Koreh by excellence and a dedicated Bar Mitzvah teacher, and a very regular contributor that gave us a little bit of luster and put us in the forefront often. He was a regular contributor of articles and letters to all the Jewish newspapers and the national papers, among the many other activities in which he was involved, in which he truly excelled. He was, as I said, an ardent supporter and defender of Shechita and Brit Milah. He served the board with a distinction on the Israel and related committees and divisions. He was a proactive and eloquent speaker, always in the forefront of plenary debates, and a staunch advocate, defender and supporter of Israel. He was mayor designate of Barnet and was to be installed shortly before his death. This was a great honour, fully deserved, and a testimony to his untiring, tireless, and endless efforts to help anyone and everyone in his constituency, no matter their race, religion, or station in life. Very sadly, his term as mayor was not to be realised. And Brian he didn't seek honour for himself. And he fulfilled, and may I please have your indulgence, the words from Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, when Rabbi Judah the Prince, who compiled the Mishnah, said, "Ezod derech yeshara sheyavo lo hadam." What is the right course that a man should choose for himself? And the answer was, Kol shehi tiferet oseha, the tiferet lo min ha'adam. Anything that's an honour to him who does it, and it was an honour, he felt it was an honour serving the community, and which also brings him honour from mankind, and we certainly honoured him. He took the honourable path in life and gained honour from his fellow men and women, earning him a good name, a Shem Tov. It's a great loss to the community that Brian was unable to honour us, his community, in the office of mayor. And he was a deeply religious man. He followed the strength of his convictions. At plenary meetings, he was first to take the stand and explain clearly and forcefully the subject in question. At times, his could be termed a lone voice in the wilderness. But for Brian, three things were inextricably linked. He deeply cared about Torah Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Ve'eretz Yisrael. He cared about the law of Israel, Torah, the people of Israel, whoever we were, and the land of Israel. And he touched the lives of very many people in a meaningful way, also in the wider community, and has really left a void which will be hard to fill. He's deeply mourned by all who have the privilege to know him. And on a lighter, and I'll end on an amusing note, Jerry Lewis, who despite diametrically opposed political views, maintained a friendship with Brian and reminded me that the only two people who almost succeeded in making a shidduch for him, Jerry, and we may have had a lot easier time had it come to fruition, was Brian and myself. Brian cared not only for the spiritual welfare, but for one's physical well-being and for everybody on the board. And our thoughts are with his wife and his family during this very difficult time. His truly beloved wife, Julie, is just a pleasure and a delight to know, was his Ezer Kenegdo, his real helpmeet. She quietly encouraged him and supported him in all his communal activities and interests. She was his rock. And at this time of the year, with the start of Selichot and with the approach of the High Holy Days, the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, we pray that Brian will be a Melech Yosher, a righteous intercessor, because he was a good man. He'll be a righteous intercessor for his family, for the Jewish community and the entire world during this unprecedented and challenging times of COVID-19. Yehi Zichro Baruch. May his memory be a blessing for all of us. Thank you very much. Amen.
Thank you, Flora. That is a very, very touching tribute. And of course, we want to remember him and thank you. That really is, that is a wonderful tribute. Thank you for all your work in doing that. Coming on to the President's statement, could I give some congratulations as well? Chaim Ben Zion on forthcoming Aliyah. We will miss you. We really will. You've been amazing. Deborah Cohen on the marriage of her younger daughter Sarah to Lizzie Allen in August. Irene Mansfield on the bar mitzvah of her youngest grandson as Shimon in September, and Colin and Elaine Grazin on their golden wedding anniversary, Jeffrey Norman on the birth of a grandson. So it's wonderful to have some mazel tovs in these difficult times. I have a request which I would like to read to you from the Commonwealth Jewish Council. So I hope that you will listen, because they do a lot of very, very worthy work. So I've been asked by the Commonwealth Jewish Council to ask for deputies' support in growing their recently launched interreligious Commonwealth Youth Alliance. This comprises of young people of religion aged between 18 to 29, and the idea is that they work together with people from at least one other country and one other religion on projects designed to improve civil society and deliver social action. The Commonwealth Jewish Council is not necessarily looking just for Jewish people, but they would like if suitable, young people could come forward from the UK because the UK is currently underrepresented. So they're looking for volunteers. So if you want to contact the office and let us know, we shall put you in touch with them. And I just want to make it clear also, going back to the Suddy Farm vote, it was an actual vote, not an indicative vote, just in case anybody wanted to raise that. I can see there's a number of questions that are coming up, and I can see we're also running quite late. What I propose to do is, I think it would be a good idea if I can actually listen to the questions and perhaps take some of these questions together, which might be the best way to deal with it, because we are running short on time, and we've also got the division reports to come through. So I'm going to give priority to people that don't usually speak. Bruce Rushton.
Good afternoon. This is Bruce Greenberg.
Oh, Bruce, well, if I'd known it was you, you normally speak. Hello.
Who speak? No, I don't. Northampton Hebrew Congregation.
Yeah.
Good afternoon now, fellow deputies. Let me be the first to wish everyone a Lashana Tova, happy 5781. And I'm just curious, our next meeting is scheduled for Sunday, November 22nd. I'm showing in my diary that is also the evening of the President's Dinner. Is the President's Dinner still scheduled, or will it be on Zoom or canceled?
Well, thank you. I was going to give some dates. I will take this question as it's a date question for the board meetings going forwards, which are penciled in the diary to start with, which we will get out to you January the 17th, February the 21st, and March the 21st. I will ask Sheila to WhatsApp me to see if we are trying to hold some sort of event, not in person, not the President's Dinner getting together, unfortunately, but we will want to do something. So I'll come back to you in a bit if I can get some more information from Sheila, who will be.
Do you want me to speak, Marie?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, go on. Yes,
okay, Bruce, thank you. No, we won't be holding anything on that day. We are still looking to do something. We're working very hard to make something innovative and exciting, and not just a normal Zoom presentation with people registering, okay? We are working on it the whole time, myself, professional team, working with Gillian, and we will let you know as soon as we come up with some firm ideas, but we are definitely working on doing something. Okay, thank you, Marie.
Thank you. Louise Ellman.
Louise Ellman, Jewish Labour Movement. I was very pleased with the action, the very rapid action the board took to try to stop rapper Wiley's hate tweets. And I also think it was very important that the board engaged, as they did, with others in trying to influence the government's proposed online hate crime bill to try and deal with hate online in relation to Wiley and indeed other things as well. I've got two questions from that. First, could you tell us what further steps the board will be taking to make sure that online hate bill actually comes into force and is effective? And could you tell us anything about links that the board has made or is making with the Black community? I think those are both very important ongoing issues. Thank you.
Can I take a couple of questions, please? Carol.
Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue. I'm concerned about communications at the moment. There are several very exciting events planned, a meeting with the Home Secretary, a meeting with the Secretary of State for Business. There's been a youth assembly. These are being announced either very, very close to the date or via social media. I only saw about the Priti Patel meeting on a closed Facebook group and was told, oh yeah, this was announced on Twitter. Now, these are just not appropriate channels of communication. All right, I'm an old techie, I can see Facebook, I won't do Twitter, but my my community, my constituents, who are mainly elderly, do not use social media, will not be able to follow a live thing on social media. They might be able to follow something on YouTube, but this is not appropriate. And we are being told 1 or 2 days before the event, and it does not give us enough time to contact people who don't look at their email every day. If they've even got email, they might look at it once a week or once a fortnight. Can the board please take into account that these are not appropriate ways to be communicating?
Robert Stone, your question, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I asked what you've done to follow up the visit. I asked what you've done to follow up the visit when you raised the question of reform and other progressive Jews last year. What your response amounted to was that apart from contacting the World Organization of Progressive Jewry, you've done absolutely nothing. And your reasons were, one, the political situation in Israel has long been in flux, and two, the impact of coronavirus. As you say, the situation in Israel is in flux, and it has been for a long time, and was last year when you raised it. The situation in China is also complex and in flux, and you quite rightly condemn the treatment of Uyghurs during the flux of of China and the prevalence of coronavirus. Do you think the government of China is capable of multitasking, but not the government of Israel? As for coronavirus, COVID-19 kills people. But in Israel, and only in Israel, Reform, Conservative and other non-Orthodox rabbis are forbidden from officiating at the burial of Jews, including those who've died from coronavirus. And contrary to the tenets of their Judaism, Reform, Conservative, Masorti, other non-Orthodox Jews, women, are not allowed to say Kaddish in the cemetery. You say that you'll take this up at the right moment. Why is this not the right moment?
Simon Gordon. Are you there, Simon?
Yes, thanks. Madam President, it's a question about about high holiday services. Our community was planning to hold services in private gardens in Marquise, and that was for two reasons. One was due to lack of capacity in our normal venue, and the second was to increase ventilation and mitigate the risk of viral transmission via aerosols. Now, as you know, the regulations seem to have prevented that, but I was in touch with Lauren Kalis and Daniel Elfman last week, and they said that the board was looking into the possibility with the government of an exemption. And I was wondering if you could update me on what progress has been made. We'd really need to know by Wednesday, otherwise we'll have to cancel with the marquee companies. I'd be very grateful for any guidance.
Right, thank you very much. On the question of guidance, I think you will find that there will be more guidance tomorrow. We already know that Barnet has said no to outdoors. So I think you'll have to wait to hear from us tomorrow, and I do appreciate that that's urgent, and it is going to be very difficult for lots of people if we can't have services outdoors. Robert, I'd like to be able to say the Board of Deputies can do miracles, and we advocate the position, and we represent all Jews. We have put the position for progressive Jews and expressed those concerns, and we will keep doing so. Louise, in relation to the question of Riley, we're having direct discussions. You have read about with the other communal organisations. You've read about the meeting with Facebook, which was a private meeting, but we have had that meeting, and we are having discussions with other social media companies. And of course, in the President's report, there's also reference to the meeting with Oliver Dowden, and we are continuing to press for legislation against the social media giants. That's part of an ongoing process, and we're not going to be detracting from that process. Sorry, I'm just looking to see the other question that I had. Communication. Most of the communication, Carol, is online for most deputies and social media, because most people use that But we are very, very conscious if people are not all on social media. And if you would like some other form of communication, or there are deputies that don't ever use social media, we'll try and see what we can do to communicate. But we usually get everything out by all means we can, whether it's on email, Twitter, or Facebook. I'd like to think that everybody knows what's going on. And can you also look at the deputies' mailing, because we do try to put everything there. And Amanda's going to come on also in her report, Louise. She will also discuss Wiley as well. I'd like to take just a few more questions, because otherwise we're not going to finish or get any divisional reports. I'm sorry, Carol, if you're shaking your head. We try to get the message out by all means, and we continue to do our best. In terms of questions, I'm trying to look for someone that hasn't yet spoken today. Amos.
Oh,
is Amos there?
Yes, hello, thank you. Amos Schonfield, Deputy for Yachad. I wanted to ask regarding the podcast with the Home Secretary. My grandfather, Rabbi Dr. Solomon Schonfeld, was instrumental in the Kindertransport. He saved the lives of 3,000 refugees before and after the Second World War. He not only gave these people safe passage, but made sure they had food, shelter, a place to work, a subsistence, and a community. For that work, he was awarded a Hero of the Holocaust Medal by Lord Pickles in 2013, and it is the same Conservative government which has now created the hostile environment, which is their words, not mine, for immigrants for the past decade. The government perpetuates a myth all too familiar to our community that this country couldn't possibly take more refugees, when it is in fact that 1%, less than 1% of the refugee population that resides in the UK today. Currently, there are no safe and legal routes for someone to seek asylum in the UK, meaning that people must make life-threatening journeys such as crossing in ill-fitting vessels. Abdul Fattah Hamdallah drowned in the Channel because there was no other way given to him to make his way here. Rather than help, the Home Secretary asked the British Navy to break international law by preventing migrants from entering British waters, and smeared lawyers seeking to prevent illegal deportations from taking place. Those who do seek sanctuary here are banned from working and must live off a measly £37 weekly allowance. Mercy Baguma starved to death in Glasgow because she couldn't afford to feed herself and her child. The success stories of Jewish refugees who thrived in the UK were only possible because of the people who made it possible to live a dignified life. However, if my grandfather were doing his life-saving work today, he would be smeared and attacked by the Home Secretary. Her government once considered the work of supporting refugees to be heroic. However, does the President think that they are doing so today?
Amos, what your granddad, your grandfather did was truly incredible. It was absolutely, and you know what you've said is really heartfelt and goes right to my heart. As you will appreciate, the Home Secretary is the Home Secretary, and as I've said before, she is responsible for the community's security, and she leads on the government's response to anti-Semitism, both online and offline. We get complaints from deputies that meetings are behind closed doors. This is a chance to actually see what the Home Secretary has got to say in person. It's also a chance to submit questions to her, and you will appreciate that she's been the victim of racism herself, misogynistic abuse, and she's a British Asian woman. I think it's a very good opportunity to put questions to Priti Patel, and there's also other matters that you might want to put to her, as well as refugees, immigration, community, cohesion. I don't understand why it's thought it's inappropriate to have a place and a forum where you can hear from the Home Secretary. You can put these issues and ask questions and have the opportunity to do so. We're not a political organisation, and we have politicians from across the spectrum. You're raising your arms, but I don't understand why you feel that we should refuse to allow the Home Secretary to address the community when the Home Secretary puts our security and deals with anti-Semitism for us as well. I don't understand what your objection could be. I don't believe that any of the other communal organisations would refuse to interact with the Home Secretary, and she should be given the dignity of her office. I have to say, but thank you as always for your question. Anthony Adler.
Hello, Anthony Adler from St. Albans Mizrahi Synagogue. I wanted to build on everything that Amos said, and I thought he said it extraordinarily well. And I think I might be able to suggest why some of us are dismayed and frankly ashamed and frankly feel let down by the fact that the Home Secretary is being given this platform. So I have raised questions at board plenary meetings on a number of occasions about Priti Patel's attempts to criminalise unauthorised encampments used by Gypsy, Roma and Traveller people in the UK in such a way that will effectively render them homeless. And the board put in a superb response to this in February earlier this year. I do not see how giving Priti Patel this platform in the way that we have, in a way we have never done to any other figure from a government, so far as I'm aware, does anything other than spit in the face of Anthony Silkoff's hard work putting together that document. I do not see how giving Priti Patel this platform does anything other than spit in the face of your very good words on Windrush Day, when she is the head of the Home Office who continue with the hostile environment policy, and when the members of the Windrush generation have yet to receive their compensation from the government. I fail to see how us giving this platform to Priti Patel, and it's really important that we understand that's what we're doing. It's not just that she's talking to us and we're talking to her. Of course, we need an ongoing relationship with the Home Office, but we are giving her a public platform that other people can see, and when people see us doing that and see her not being challenged, they think that we support her and her policies. And I do not think the board does support her and her policies. The board supported the Dubs Amendment. Did Priti Patel support the Dubs Amendment? No, she did not. The board recently had a very heated debate on our policy on Israel, and it was very measured. Priti Patel's policy on Israel, bearing in mind she got fired so fast her feet literally didn't touch the ground because she was still mid-air at the time for going on an unauthorized jolly in Israel, entirely against the ministerial code. I don't think her policy on Israel is really something that the Board of Deputies should be supporting, particularly given the very measured stance the board has voted to take so recently. So perhaps for those reasons, I think that might make it slightly clearer why Amos and many others are perhaps a little bit uncomfortable and think this is inappropriate. Thank you, Marie.
You've been 2.5 minutes, and I'm not sure where the clock is because we're going to finish the meeting without going through the division reports at this stage. I'm going to take two more questions and then I'll come back to that. So Adrian Cohen and Ben Lewis. No disrespect to anyone, it's just we're running very short of time.
Right, so I was waiting to be unmuted. I mean, I just do say that speaking of Adrian Cohen, personally, I've been a member of the Labour Party for most of my life. I feel passionate about the same issues as Amos and Anthony. But however, I think the notion that we should no platform the Home Secretary, which is effectively what Amos and Anthony are saying, I think is ludicrous. It's visible for the Board of Deputies to do that. I think the Board of Deputies needs to engage with the Home Secretary because of what's in her ministerial brief. And I think the Board of Deputies, if it is to extend and enhance its political influence on behalf of the community, needs to find different ways of engaging with politicians from across the spectrum. And the Board of Deputies has to do that both with Conservative ministers and Labour Party shadow ministers, and for that matter, members of other political parties too. So I just think yes, of course, we all feel very passionate about different issues, and there are going to be differing perspectives within the board, but to do something which would be seen as excluding from discussion and debate politicians with whom we disagree, or some of us disagree, it can't be a modus operandi for the Board of Deputies, which is not a party political organisation.
Thank you. I'm going to have to take the final one because we're due to finish in about 14 minutes. We haven't done the divisional reports. Ben Lewis, please, and then Jonathan Rowland has asked to speak, but can you please be brief?
Hi, Ben Lewis, Reform Judaism. I was glad to see your article in the Jewish Chronicle about social media and online hate. We've had a lot of debates recently about what the board is for, but I'm sure we can all agree that making sure social media isn't a safe haven for hate is one of them. And I echo Louise Ellman's point. I hope the board continues to push for the online harms bill to be as effective as possible. Just two very quick questions on that point. I've raised previously that whilst we have a strong communal voice, we would have an exponentially louder voice in partnership with other minority and faith groups who are affected by this kind of hate. Does the board have concrete plans to work together to form a broad coalition so that we can have the biggest possible impact on this important legislation that's coming up? And second, there is a second side to online hate, which is that very unfortunately, our community is also sometimes a source of very unpleasant social media content in both outside our community and at fellow members of the community. I often look at my constituency, Reform Judaism's Facebook page, and see other Jews leaving abuse, and that's incredibly saddening to see. Some incidents have been very well publicised, and particularly young and female members of the community have been victims of very terrible abuse, including threats of violence and calls for them to commit suicide. Will the board equally be a champion for responsible social media behaviour in our community and work to ensure that our community is also not a source of online hate?
I think that ties in with Louise Ellman's question about engaging with the Black community. You know that we have our Commission for Inclusivity, which is reporting, and the board is trying to engage extensively. And we're very thankful to the chairman of the commission, Stephen Bush, and we're going to wait for his recommendations. But absolutely, the board wants to engage, and we condemn all racism and anti-Semitism online. And we are working with all the communal organisations extremely hard. We're all on the same page to try to make sure that the social media giants have responsibility and that there is legislation to prevent such terrible, awful abuse. Hatred online is something that has to be tackled. We can't all carry on as we are before. But in relation to Priti Patel, I've talked about the dignity of her office. And of course, we have to engage with the Home Secretary and with the government. And we have to be prepared to deal with all politicians. And she, as I say, spends a lot of time and effort being responsible for the security and the welfare of our community. And it's a good opportunity. And also, we're very grateful to her that she has wanted to spend the time to come on a podcast with the Board of Deputies, where you can listen directly to what she has to say and you can put in some questions. And there's no Jewish communal organisation that's going to refuse to deal with the Home Secretary. So I do not understand why there is the suggestion otherwise. So I'm sorry that I'm going to have to move on because we're not going to get any reports. I am sorry, I'm getting some messages, you've taken others, and I am sorry for that. But the problem is we are due to finish in 12 minutes. So if those people want to ask questions, then they can ask them in the division reports. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to come on to the executive committee report, which has been sent to you. I haven't got any comments on that, and I've given you the proposed dates going forwards into next year, where we are looking at having meetings. So January 17th, 10:30 a.m., February 21st and March 21st, both in the morning. And we're going to have to come back to you. Could Jerry Lewis please stop waving his hand because it's detracting. In relation to the division reports, could I please ask Amanda to present your report? You'll have to be speedy. I apologise for that, Amanda. And you've got some questions coming up, so I'm going to give priority to people that haven't had their question before. And I saw Vicky Harris.
Okay.
So, Amanda.
Thanks, Marie. Since the last full board meeting, the division has met 3 times to take forward our defence work. Responding to Ben and Louise's questions to you, Marie, you'll have seen in our report our work on online harms and the extensive advocacy that we've had with social media owners and also with parliamentarians and others on this issue. Marie's op-ed in the Jewish Chronicle outlined 3 areas that we believe we need to take action on, either within the bill itself and our response to the bill, which we are fighting for to make sure that it doesn't get lost in other business, with other business going on, but also in our wider advocacy work. So firstly, that the government appoints a regulator that itself adopts the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and that they work within that as they work with social media companies to protect Jewish users against online harm. We want social media companies to use UK-based staff to moderate potential harmful content. And we also want to find a way to effectively penalise the social media companies who fail to comply with the newly agreed standards, for example, with significantly heavy fines that will make a difference to them. I also want to talk very briefly about the event we hosted on Thursday, which was an online session in partnership with the Jewish Medical Association. And at this point, I give enormous thanks to David Katz and to Daniel Elton from the board for their work on this. We did this within the context of the NHS Blood and Transplants Organ Donation Week. The purpose was to reinforce the changes in the organ donation system in England, urging Jewish communities to engage in the new organ donation system. We featured Professor David Katz, surgeon Jonathan Olsberg, and nephrologist Professor Alan Salama, and we had powerful testimony from both an anonymous recipient and from Mr. David Myers, who chairs the Royal Free London Organ Donation Committee. I commend my report to you, but I'd finish by wishing you all a happy and healthy new year. And in the run up to the high holidays, I realise that many of us will be reflecting on what more we can do to live according to our Jewish values. With that in mind, it's critical that we all, taking rabbinic advice as appropriate, talk with our families about whether and how we would like to become an organ donor if anything should happen to us. Ensuring that our families know our wishes, whether that's to be on the register, which I hope people would want to be, but clearly it's a very personal view and everyone needs to take their own decision. But so that our families know that whatever the future may hold, we can uphold our critical way to live our Jewish values of saving life, respect for the deceased, and care for the bereaved.
Thank you, Amanda. The HOs are going to have to be speedy, please, because otherwise the other HOs are not going to be able to speak. I can see questions. Vicky, do you have a question? You were there before, and there's Tao Ofer and Doris Schmetterling.
Madam President, my question related to your statement. I wouldn't.
Well, thank you. Well, then I'm sorry. We'll have to move on then.
I would not wish to take up time, even though it is a defence matter that I was going to raise.
Thank
so
you,
I will reserve it to the next plenary.
Okay, thank you for that. Tao Ofer. Thank you, Vicky. Tao.
Hi, good morning.
I can't hear you very well.
Good morning, Tal Ofer from Chigwell and Hainault. Very brief question to Amanda. We've been discussing in the Defence Division for the past 5 or 6 years our support for the work of Skojec in Scotland. Brought a couple of times the issue of supporting them financially. However, I didn't see any decision move forward with this. Can we please try and prioritize, because it's really, really urgent, to support of all the hard work that they're doing on behalf of us, not just our division, but all the divisions and the board in Scotland. And I would like to finish by wishing all the honorary officers, the deputies and the staff and the families, Shana Tova U'Metuka.
Thank you. Dori, did you have a question? Because I'll take all the questions together. I think you've disappeared from my screen.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We have to.
Yeah, forget it. It was for previous. I forgot to lower my hand.
That's fine. So Tal,
I wasn't called before. So.
That's fine. Thank you, Dori. Tal, in response to your question, you unfortunately you had left the Defence Division meeting when this came up at our meeting last week, but and I will be writing to the division tomorrow about this. However, as you know, the issues of support for our regions, and that includes support for SCOJEC, come under the remit of the Communities Division, and but as I say, I will pick that up in an email to the division tomorrow.
Can I just clarify that I think we've all discussed as honorary officers that we're not an organisation that is a funding organisation. We have to work within our own budget, and we've got our communal engagement officer to provide support. So I don't think it's a matter to pass to perhaps to the Communities Division, because it's a trustee matter, this, and it has been discussed many times, but it's probably better to be taken offline. Edwin, would you like to present your report, please?
Yes, I'm grateful to the staff for preparing a very meaningful and easy to read report. So I won't have to add anything except to bring your attention that on the 22nd of September, which is next week, the Chief Rabbi will launch together with Pikoach our new instruction book. I invite you to attend, and that's it, Madam President. Brief, and the report speaks for itself.
Fine. Does anyone have any questions, please? Fine. Well, you're very straightforward. Sheila.
Hi, Marie. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to see you all. I am pleased and proud, as always, to present my report, and I want to thank everybody for all their hard work, especially Talia, Marie, Phil, Gillian, everybody who's put all the time in. So is all the activity that's gone on that you've read about in the report. I'm also delighted to report, for those that aren't aware, that a few minutes before Shabbat on Friday, the Kingdom of Bahrain announced the normalization of relationships with Israel. So that is wonderful. The board has expressed their delight that hopefully this will be a strong move, and we welcome to anything we can do towards peace and prosperity for the region. So we are looking to, move ahead with engagement, and I'm thrilled that this has happened. And hopefully, I wish you all a Shana Tova. We should have a good year, and peace in Israel should be moving ever closer. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
There's a question from Jonathan Neumann. Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Sheila. Jonathan Newman, Shomrei Adas. I just want to note first that I do regret that some deputies were able to speak twice in this meeting, even right at the end of the president's statement, while others who were waiting didn't get a chance to speak at all. I don't think that's right, particularly in Zoom plenaries when deputies are at the mercy of the hosts of the meeting. But moving to my question, Sheila, we've all heard, I'm sure, that Poland is looking to ban exports of shechted kosher meat, supposedly in the name of animal rights. It's liable to have a significant impact on Israel and potentially also the UK, Belgium, and elsewhere. I believe the restriction to exports is to try to circumvent a ruling of a few years ago by the Constitutional Court there. It's $1 billion industry. Industry leaders in the country are opposed to the policy. I appreciate this only came up recently. I'd be very grateful, Sheila, if you're able to make representations in the coming week to the Polish embassy and or the government to express our sentiments about this, frankly, discriminatory and harmful proposal.
Thank you for bringing this up, Jonathan. Absolutely, we have a relationship with the Polish government. We do make representation when issues, and we also work closely with the Jewish community in these countries. We don't tread on anybody's toes. It's a very sensitive political situation, and we don't want to make matters worse by stepping in where we can't be helpful. We've done this in other areas with Brit Mila, Shakita, Iceland, Denmark. We are always there, and thank you for raising this point, but we'll definitely be making representation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jonathan, in relation to your point, a huge number of people have spoken this morning, and I'm also conscious of previous meetings when people speak. Believe it or not, some people that have spoken already twice are demanding to speak a third time, which I'm not actually doing. But if you actually look at the amount of you that have spoken today, is a huge number of you, and I do try to give priority to people that haven't spoken for 4. So I'm not responding to a couple of people wanting to speak again for the very reason you said. And of course, you were immediately given the floor because you don't often want to speak. So I must know it's very important if you want to raise it. So one more person, Denise Lester.
Hi, Denise.
Hi all. Hi all.
Hi.
Just to say, I know I'm not on video. I'm actually listening in from Greece. Would you believe? So
Wow.
I just want to and then having to quarantine. I just want to say to you all that it's amazing what the board has done in partnership with absolutely everyone and everybody, officers, all our external partners, our strategic relations with government. Everybody, or you are absolutely amazing, and we should collectively just all wish each other Lashana Tova, a happy and sweet new year. Thank you, Flora, for the tribute to Brian. He was a committed deputy. I only wish you all, the honorary officers and staff, only good health, strength and commitment. And of course, we should engage with the Home Secretary. We are British subjects as well and subject to the rule of law. And I just wish you all the very, very best going into the new year. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Now, I don't know whether anyone's got any other questions for Stuart, but do you want to still present your report in Swift time? You'll have to come off mute.
I know how short we are of time, and there are various questions coming to me, as always, when I've spoken, and I'll pick
Michael
up.
Ray, if you want to take Michael.
I just wanted to say one last thing to add. We almost had the divisional report earlier. I just want to add that the current position is that till the end of August, which these numbers didn't come through in time to write the divisional report for you, to include the divisional report. We're running an operational deficit of about £65,000 year to date against a reforecast budget of 92. And my estimate earlier about the extent to which the communal contribution is coming off somewhere between 15 and 20% so far from the data points we have is accurate. I cannot overstate the importance of the community contribution and the communal contribution and the rep fees being paid. And I'm sorry, but it beggars belief to me that there are people who take up so much time who don't contribute to either. And I'm not going to name names in spite of the urging of some people to do that, but it beggars belief to me. That's all I want to say, because it's not difficult to get your organization to pay its rep fees, for example.
We can have time for one question, and I have said, and I agree with Jonathan, that people who've spoken once or twice, I'm sorry, can't speak again, not naming names either, but Michael Rake, this needs to be the final.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for allowing me to speak. As I've explained, unfortunately, I can't get visually that you can see me, but it's a general question I've been wanting to ask. A couple of months ago, there were meetings held with Bob Blackman and David Simmons, and David Simmons is my local MP. I had previously spoken with him before the board did, yet officers from the board went to speak to him and didn't advise me they were going to. I honestly believe that that is the job of the deputies to meet up with local MPs, and if somebody's coming into our area from the board, they should speak to us first, and hopefully we should go and speak together. So if there are matters to follow up in the future, we then can do that all together, not that just the officers. This is a duty of individual members to be able to speak with the officers of the board when they visit their local MPs. And I think this should be something that should be generally accepted.
Michael, unfortunately, that's really not within the FNO's remit, that particular one. Marie, I don't know who should take that one.
Let's take it offline, because I'm afraid that we've finished to the end of the meeting. Jerry Lewis has said that he's got a point of order about the executive report, but I'm sorry, we have to finish the meeting, and that will have to be dealt with offline if there is anything, and we will come back to you. No disrespect to anyone, but as we've said earlier, and as said by Jonathan, people have spoken once, twice or three times. Can I say to everybody how much I value everything that you're doing. It's been wonderful to connect with you today. We've discussed a lot of very important issues. Denise put it very well and said that we should all be grateful for all the good things that we've got. I wish you all Shana Tova. I wish you all good things. Can we all be kind to each other and remember the good things that we do and how wonderful it is to at least be able to connect. And I think you're all amazing for everything that you do. I know we can't always agree, but it's great to disagree as well. And it's done in such a nice way. And it's a really fantastic opportunity to actually get together. And I'm so proud of everything that we are all doing as a community. So I want to say thank you to all of you. So Shana Tova.